So you heard about all of the great things about San Diego and all the sunshine that we get here in one of America's finest cities, actually over 200 days of sunshine. Well, today we're not talking about the pros. We're going to be talking about the top 5 reasons why you should not move to San Diego, and we're going to get after it right now. What's up, amazing people? I am Liz Lepore here with the Mortgage Liz team located out of San Diego, California. And if this is the first time to my channel and you're looking for that channel that's talking about everything of what it's like to eat, sleep, live, and play here in San Diego, California, this is the channel for you. You definitely want to hit that subscribe button and click that little bell so that way you're reminded every single time I release a new video, because honestly, we do them every single week. And honestly, my team and I are receiving phone calls every single day with people just like you that are thinking about making that move to San Diego, whether it's moving from a different state or just moving from a different area of San Diego to maybe the North County or vice versa. If you are thinking about making that move, you definitely want to reach out to us. Give us a call, send us a text, or an email, whatever is easiest for you. We definitely got your back when moving to San Diego. Now, let's get after the top 5 reasons why you don't want to move to San Diego. So too many times are you watching videos about San Diego and all you hear about is the beautiful beaches and the amazing weather that we got here in San Diego, and that's all they talk about. But what about the negatives? What about the cons? There's got to be some to live here in San Diego. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The top 5 reasons why you don't want to live here in San Diego. And number 1 out of the top 5 is going to be the cost of living. So we already know that California in general is going to be one of the highest costs of living that you're going to find out of all of the 50 states. But within California, San Diego ranks up pretty high. And that's what we want to discuss on this video as well, as to how bad that cost of living is. But depending on where you're coming from, it may not be that big a deal. You could be coming from New York, but you could be coming from Texas, which is completely different cost of living. And so with the cost of living here in San Diego, let's dive in just a little bit more about the details as to why that is such a con. So we do definitely pay a sunshine tax when it comes to California, and especially in San Diego. In San Diego, home prices on average are about $645,000. In this last year, obviously prices have been going up anywhere between 8 to 11 and 12% more in comparison to different parts of San Diego. So when you're looking at that price just out of the $645,000 for a San Diego home, based off of bestplaces.net, you want to be able to then compare it to the national average. When it comes to the national average of home prices through the entire country, we're looking at home prices at about $231,200. In comparison to San Diego, we are looking at home prices at about $645,300, which is a dramatic difference in comparison to the national average. Now we compare to California, and in California, the average home price is $552,800. And so when we start looking at those numbers, it is actually 60.1% more expensive to live in San Diego than the national average. So yes, it is more expensive. We of course do pay that sunshine tax in San Diego, and it also does come with a higher cost of living as well. And as we are 60% higher in home prices, we actually do rank at number 57 as the most expensive based off of 228 different cities here in the national average based off of bestplaces.net. So with that con, home prices in general have been going up about 8 to 12%. In some places of San Diego County, they have been going up even more than that. But on this average, you will find home prices actually even more than $645,000 in the comparison to different areas, because as they have been going up over 8 to 10 to 12%, you are going to find home prices in general with a more of a particular market that we're in right now to be a little bit more difficult to be able to get your offer accepted. And so therefore, you're going to end up having to pay that extra little premium to be able to buy a home in San Diego. And you are definitely going to find a lot of other buyers just like yourself that are thinking about buying in San Diego. And with the shortage amount of sellers that are trying to sell in San Diego, it is definitely going to be a little bit harder for that buyer to be able to buy their home, because they're definitely going to be competing. So in comparison to, let's say, when I purchased my home here in San Diego in '07, home prices were in that time at about $500,000 based off of the home that I purchased. So during that time, home prices did decrease. So remember what happened during '07 to '09. Home prices did drop from the $500,000 all the way down to about $375,000, which is about the lowest point of when my home was worth. But then on the flip side, now almost 14 years later, my home is back up and it looks like about a little over $600,000. So home prices, may they go down in different types of market, they will come back up. And historically in San Diego, you will find values that are pretty sustainable, pretty steady, and as they are still increasing right now, even though the market is going up, you will still be able to, in some cases, find some good spots to be able to live. But of course, like I said, we got a sunshine tax here in San Diego coming along with the beaches that are on the coast, and then of course our inland areas. Depending on where you're looking, the cost of living could be not as bad. But in San Diego specifically, you are definitely going to find it 60% more expensive to live here in San Diego than in the national average. So on to the next negative thing about San Diego, number 2, and that's going to be the seasons. So I'm sure you're aware, here in San Diego, we don't have seasons. You know, there is no per se fall and winter. We don't really per se get a lot of snow when it comes to San Diego in general. Our leaves do technically fall, but it's not going to be something in comparison to what you're going to see in other states. As well as that winter portion, you're going to find in some areas that like Big Bear and Palomar Mountain, you're going to find that snow, or even going to Julian. But in San Diego specifically, it has been some amount of years since we have seen snow. On that note though, I just saw actually on Facebook that in Rancho Penasquitos, which is technically in that San Diego area, there was snow falling, where in the same day in Escondido, there was hail falling. And then in Valley Center, they were actually showing a little bit of snow. So just meaning like some white stuff on our grass. So nothing like what you're going to find in Julian or like Big Bear or Palomar Mountain. It's not going to be the same thing. So when it comes to the seasons, you're not going to really have a lot of that. With that being said, you're also going to have a lot of sunshine. So that's where that sunshine tax comes in. So you're talking about over 240, 270 days of sunshine out of the entire year. It is not common that we get a lot of rain, but when we do get a lot of rain, or when we do get any rain, I mean, us San Diegans, we really don't have the best of idea on how to drive. We have a lot of accidents. We have a lot of people that are running into car poles. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll remember about the car pole when somebody's driving and they don't know how to drive and then they hit the pole. Well, that is called a car pole. So when it comes to the San Diego area, you're not going to find, like I said, a lot of different weather in general. So when it comes to your average day, you're going to be able to find your average day at about 75, 85 degrees here in San Diego. But depending on where in San Diego, you will find it a little bit cooler or a little bit hotter. So closer to the North County of San Diego, in Escondido and Valley Center, you're going to find that it's going to be a little bit hotter. In San Diego, closer downtown, it's going to find it, of course, a little bit cooler because you are closer to the water. Going down to the coast on the 5, Carlsbad and Oceanside, you are going to find it a bit cooler. So, but you're talking about anywhere between like 10 degrees roughly in comparison to just general San Diego, when you're going to be finding that average day at 75, 85 degrees. So something that we do have here in San Diego are Santa Ana winds. And so many think that Santa Ana winds typically come like in October and in December, or in general, they just come in a specific month, but that's really not the case. With my husband as a lineman, we have actually found that Santa Ana comes all throughout the year. We just had 4 days of Santa Ana winds in December, and then just last week in the beginning of January, we were finding that some crazy winds where literally the canopies in the backyard were lifting up and flying away. And I mean, so it's not common to have a specific time frame for Santa Ana. With Santa Ana winds are going to come fires. That is definitely something else that's going to come along with that weather. Even though we don't have seasons, we do have fires. Santa Anas are going to be something that you are definitely going to expect here in San Diego. So So on to number 3, the next negative thing about San Diego, and that is the housing shortage. So here in San Diego, you're really going to find more so like right now, the sellers have more of kind of an upper hand. Just because there are so many buyers that are trying to take advantage of these crazy low interest rates. And so because there are so many buyers, the sellers can kind of nitpick and see who they want or don't want to accept the offer from. Right now, you are going to find that on an average price, an average house, you're going to find anywhere between 6 to 15. I just heard literally yesterday there was one home that had 35 offers, and my client was not the one that was accepted. I mean, the amount of people that are trying to buy right now in this market is a lot. And so when you look at the housing shortage as to what and the reason why we need to build just a little bit more, you're going to find that 27% of people honestly can't afford San Diego because the home price is at $645,300. In most cases, depending on where in San Diego, that's not going to be enough money to be able to buy what you're looking for in San Diego. And just a little food for thought, I was talking to one of my clients yesterday that is kind of struggling right now and trying to find a home in Chula Vista. And it wasn't even in Chula Vista. She had opened up herself into literally 7 different cities and was still finding a struggle of finding a home where she was not paying more than $615,000. And so just in that, looking into Santee, La Mesa, Chula Vista, she went as far as Otay Mesa, even was going as north as Escondido. And I mean, there was a lot of homes, but trying to find even the bare minimum of what she was looking for, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, minimum 1,400 square feet, it was really hard, and she was getting beat out time and time again. Whereas on the flip side, I have other clients that are getting their offers accepted. And so it just depends on what you're looking for. And in this housing shortage of where there is less sellers and more buyers, the sellers do have that upper hand. And so it is a little bit harder to be able to get your offer accepted. And since the end of the Great Recession, and in 2010, there was reports showing that we had a shortage of 59,000 homes to be able to serve just the people that were living right now in San Diego. So it is kind of a difficult thing to be able to find your home. With that also being said, they're saying that there is a shortage of over 143,800 homes that are needed right now in San Diego just to be able to help the people that are currently living in San Diego. So to say that we are at a shortage, it is definitely an understatement. With that being said, you're also going to find some available homes closer, kind of like up in Riverside County, in Temecula, in Menifee, or even going as far as Murrieta, depending on the area of what you're looking for. So if you can't find it in San Diego, about 20 to 40 minutes north, you can find something there as well. They definitely do have more homes up there, but because they have more development and more construction, some of my clients are moving up there because they're being able to get more for their dollar. So that kind of goes back to that cost of living, plus that housing shortage that we are having here in San Diego. So there is definitely a lot of cons. There are some pros in here today as well, but today actually we're not talking about any pros. So we're just talking about cons. So let's move on to the next one. And on to number 4, and that's going to be earthquakes and fires. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about those fires that come from the Santa Ana winds, right? But there's also earthquakes. So in San Diego, you're not going to honestly feel as many of the earthquakes that do happen. Yes, they do exist, and yes, they sometimes can get felt, depending on how light or not light of a sleeper you are. Just about a month ago, we did have an earthquake. It wasn't per se in San Diego, but we did feel it. The house did move. And so that's the reason why we do sometimes request that you have earthquake insurance. Are you required to have earthquake insurance? Absolutely not. But for example, for me, earthquake insurance in my home is literally under $250 a year. So to be able to be protected with earthquake insurance for $200 a year, it's really not that big a deal, just to make sure that just in case that we'll be okay. And then the Red Cross says that 1 out of every 4 families, households, are actually ready for an earthquake. So maybe when you start moving to San Diego and you make that move, you make sure that you have that earthquake prepared package, the whole plan as to how you're going to get out, right? And then number two, make sure that you got your earthquake insurance. They do say that 67% of families will eventually feel some kind of earthquake while living here in San Diego. And while I typically sleep through the majority of the earthquakes and my husband will feel them and I'm passed out asleep, I just felt that one earlier, I think it was last month, where we did actually feel the whole house moving and I was standing in the middle of our house. So some of those things that you do technically feel every now and then. And something I learned about earthquakes was that us San Diegans typically live about 15 miles from a fault, of which can be technically a damaging earthquake. Like the Rose Canyon Fault that is underneath downtown San Diego, and the Elsinore and San Jacinto ones that are located over in East County. So yeah, we're going to be able to, or possibly going to feel that earthquake. And so when you start thinking about, is it in your budget to get or not get earthquake insurance, you want to make sure that you just spend the money. Because honestly, when you actually calculate it back out, $200 a year is literally less than 25 bucks a month. And then that typically calculates out to literally less than 5 Starbucks a month. So opt out for the Starbucks, get yourself some earthquake insurance, and you'll thank yourself in the long run. All right, so on to the next negative, and that's going to be the fires. So yes, of course, we do get fires here in San Diego, and that's what those Santa Ana winds will typically make those fires. But every now and then we have a baby shower that went wrong or a baby announcement that went wrong and then caused a big, massive fire, vice versa it being the Santa Ana fires or the Santa Ana winds that are going to cause the fire. The majority of the time that since 2017, we have made a lot of changes. We have cut down that brush. We had made sure that whether we're in a drought or not in a drought, that we are making sure that we don't have as much dry land on our properties. So that way we make sure that we kind of avoid those sparks, that if they happen to land in our backyard, they're not going to spark and light up our house with a fire. Things like that have happened in the past with regards to that baby announcement, where they literally did a baby announcement in the middle of brush, which caused a big, massive fire. So stuff like that, you're definitely going to want to be watching out for. And depending on where in San Diego you are thinking about moving, whether it's in Fallbrook or Ramona or Valley Center, Escondido, or just general San Diego, your insurance is going to be quite a bit more expensive, because if there was prior fires there in that area, in that city, or maybe there was an accidental fire in that area, you're going to find more expensive insurance for your fire insurance in that home. So you just want to make sure that one, you do your research, but also that you're aware of how common it is to have fires in the area of San Diego that you're looking at. And along with those fires, if you think about what has happened in 2003 and 2004, you may remember a Santa Ana fire that caused a lot of damage and a lot of deaths during that time. So it is definitely something that we are definitely trying to be more prepared for. So you want to make sure that, again, part of the cons that we have here in San Diego, and yes, there are a whole bunch of pros, but fire is definitely one of them. And the Santa Ana winds will cause those as well. So we touched a little bit about the fire insurance, but before we go on to number 5, I want to make sure that you understand how much fire insurance can typically run. So fire insurance back when we first bought our home was about $900. We've owned our home for almost 14 years, and now that same fire insurance is about $1,200, plus the earthquake insurance, which is, like I said, a little bit under $300 as of right now. And so when you look at that right now in Escondido, in comparison to, let's say, if you were thinking about buying in general San Diego, your insurance is going to be right about the same, about $1,200. And if you add your earthquake insurance, it's going to be about that $300 that I was referring to. However, if you're thinking about the outskirt areas like Ramona and Fallbrook or Valley Center, you're going to find your insurance a bit more expensive. I just had a client that got their keys for their new home in Ramona, and their home insurance for the fire alone, no earthquake, no flood insurance alone, was $3,000. a year. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of how much that fire insurance can be, because whereas my fire insurance is looking at about $1,200 a year plus additional earthquake insurance about $300, you're looking at just the fire insurance at about $100 a month. And so then you add that extra per se $25. Now you're looking at about $125 for a month for your fire and your earthquake insurance. On the flip side, if you're looking at maybe in San Diego in an area where they used to have a fire like Ramona, you may find your fire insurance, what I was saying before, north of $3,000. So on a monthly aspect, you're talking like $125 to $300 a month. So that is going to be a very drastic difference on the changes of the price, and then plus that cost of living that we were talking about before. And on to the next con of living in San Diego, and that's going to be the traffic. So in San Diego, it is actually really common that you have a car. Over 80% of people own cars, and they're constantly driving from one part of San Diego to the other part of San Diego. And whether the park that you're taking your kids to is right around the corner, odds are that you're not going to be taking a bike or walking to that park. Odds are that you're going to hop in your car and go to the park that's around the corner. Majority of the time, you are going to see that transportation in general and gas is more expensive when it comes to San Diego. Again, sunshine tax, cost of living, that's all part of living in San Diego. And so when you look at gas on average here in San Diego in comparison to the national average, we are dramatically different once again. So national average shows at $2.89 for a gallon of gas in the national average. However, you look at San Diego, and of course we're going to be more expensive at $4.09 on a gallon of gas in San Diego. So it can get pretty expensive when it looks to fill up your tank, and depending on how big your car is, or whether you drive a big GMC like me, you're going to be looking at about $80 to $100 to fill up your 25 to 27 gallon tank. So depending on how much you drive, gas and transportation could get pretty expensive. If you happen to decide that you don't want to have a car, you want to transport yourself and by walking or maybe by a bus, you can definitely use the transit that comes from San Diego, or if you want to take the trolley from one part of San Diego to the other part of San Diego, it does actually typically take you from San Diego all the way up north to like Oceanside through the transit, just giving you multiple options. And of course, you can always call Uber and Lyft as your other option if you wanted to do that. But again, if you are choosing not to buy a car and use Uber and Lyft on a regular basis, you're going to end up spending a lot of money, especially depending on how close or far away you are from your work. A lot of the time you are going to find that the average day of you driving to your job and living in general in San Diego is going to be about 30 to 35 minutes. So unless you live really close to your employment, that's going to be you getting out of the city, hopping on the freeway, going a couple exits, and then getting to your employment. Keep in mind that San Diego is a very large city. So just San Diego in itself has 1.5 million people just in San Diego. If you look at the county of San Diego, we have north of 3.3 million people in San Diego County. And so you are going to find a lot of traffic when it comes to San Diego, and depending on what time you leave will depend on how long it takes you to get to your employment. So just kind of give you a little bit of a perspective is that if you were trying to get to your work by 9 a.m. and you were going to middle part of Rancho Bernardo, Poway area in San Diego, which is technically right in the cusp on the 15, and you were coming from the middle of Escondido at right about 8:15, 8:20, from that point to get there by 9 o'clock, you're going to need at least 20 to 30 minutes to go through that traffic and sit in the traffic jam that you're going to end up on in the freeway. And then of course you can always try the carpool lanes that will end up allowing you to go with more than one person, a minimum of two, or you can use what I like to have as the fast pass, which will allow you to be able to come in and come out of that carpool lane without having to have a second person inside of your car. So just a quick tip about being able to get in and out of the city quickly and trying to avoid as much traffic as possible. Try using the app Wave, W-A-V-E. So the Wave app actually gives you the ability of being able to avoid the traffic, whether it's going on the outskirts or just kind of taking a little bit of a detour, or maybe taking a different freeway vice versus the one that has a lot of accidents on it. It gives you a different option of being able to travel. And one thing to remember about when it comes to the traffic is that when it rains, traffic is completely different. So what would have taken you about 20 to 30 minutes to get to your job, now you need to leave an extra 20 minutes earlier just to avoid the traffic jams that you're definitely gonna get when there's rain on our roads. Because here in San Diego, we are not used to rain. We do actually get under 12 inches of rain on average here in San Diego. With over 270 sunny days in San Diego, rain is not something that we know a lot about. And especially when it comes to hail, every now and then when we do get hail, that makes our roads even worse. And so you want to make sure that you definitely allot that time and that you're aware of where you're going to, and if you're going to move to San Diego, you know how long it's going to take you to get to your destination. All right, amazing people. So today it was all about the negatives. We were talking about the top 5 reasons why you should not move here to San Diego. And of course there are pros, but on this video, it was all about the negatives. So if you want to check out some of those pros, you definitely want to check out my other videos. But if you're looking at moving here to San Diego and you're curious about what it's like to eat, live, sleep, and play here in San Diego, you definitely want to click that subscribe button and tap that little bell so that way you're reminded every single time I release a new video, because we release them every single week. And if you're thinking about making that move and you're curious about maybe what the payments for your new mortgage would be, or maybe what the area is going to be like, the areas that you're thinking about, whether it's in San Diego or North County, San Diego, you definitely want to reach out to us. Give us a call, send us a text, or an email, whatever is easiest for you. We definitely got your back when moving to San Diego. And until next time, make sure that you check out these videos that are coming up on your screen, because they're talking all about the other great things about San Diego. More about the pros, less about the cons. And until next time, see you later.